Happy day, sisters. Welcome to Come Sis With Me, the podcast, a movement fueled by the heart of women with a desire to experience genuine community that uplifts, empowers, and strengthens one another on one common hood, sisterhood. I'm your host, Mia, relationship counselor, coach, minister, and your sisterhood connoisseur. Join me as we walk through my honest conversations on all things sisterhood, womanhood, and whatever other hood comes up, with a goal of knowing that through it all, you got this, sis. Hey guys, welcome back to part 2 of this episode on grief. I talked last time a little bit about what grief is, how I have experienced grief, and why I think we tend to struggle in grief. And now I want to share with you what I've learned how to do in grief. And maybe even what you could potentially do, either for a sister or for yourself. But all right, let's jump into it. What to do? This is my experience. These are the things that I believe have helped me be a better sister to other women who are going through grief, and then also to myself as I've experienced grief. I truly believe like these are universal and you can use them in a multitude of situations when we're dealing with grief. So the first one is, and I feel like I should coin this term because I don't think anyone else used it before me, but I started praying one day for a close leader in the group of mine that used to minister with me in Wives in Waiting. And I just remember being so heartbroken because she was diagnosed with MS. And it was so unexpected. We in a million years would never thought that would be a diagnosis of hers. She had already been going through losses, and so this diagnosis was just like the straw, right, that could have broken the camel's back. And I remember saying to myself, I know I need to call her. I know I need to say something to her. I don't want to just not say anything. Why is this making me emotional? And I prayed. And I was like, God, I don't know anything to say to this woman. Like, I like, what is it that I could say to her? And I remember the words that I heard were honor your heart. And that's exactly what I wrote her. I was like, hey, sis, I don't know what this is. I don't know how this is going to work. I don't even know how you feel. But I'm going to tell you this. Honor your heart. Whatever that looks like. Whatever that means to you, I want you to honor your heart. And so I wrote down that honor your heart means to seek to understand what you are feeling and respect that. To meet you where you are. And this is hard because it requires us to really be still. It required me to stop and pray about what I was feeling before I projected my feelings onto my sister, one, but also to stop and think about what she potentially could be feeling. And then to be honest, I don't know what to say. I have no words for this diagnosis. I have no words for why it would take place right now when you're already going through so much. I don't know. But all I do know is that I pray that you honor your heart. If you want to throw something at the window, out the door, stomp on the ground, scream at the top of your lungs, cry all day in a corner, sit in the dark, whatever your heart needs right now in this moment, I want you to honor. And 2 things that grief makes us feel are impossible is sitting still and being honest. And that's why I believe honoring your heart is one of them. Because honoring your heart means that you will, one, sit still long enough to even know what your heart is feeling, But then 2, to be honest about it. Yeah. The other one is to take time. Rushing into anything or rushing into what's next without processing actually what has just taken place is dangerous. It's dangerous because it can lead us to being irresponsible with the way that we feel, with the people around us, with the things that we have access to or don't have access to. And it definitely doesn't honor our heart, right? It just kind of skips over, glosses over the whole death part, the whole Jesus on the cross part, the whole painful, unimaginable, unspeakable, ridiculous, doesn't make sense, no good, very bad thing that just took place and propels us into, okay, what's next? I just got to get through it type thing. And I've learned that taking time, whatever that looks like, right? Sometimes I'll be in the midst of grief and my girlfriends will call and I'm like, I need a second. They're like, yo, we know something just happened. Like, we need to talk to you now. I'm like, I need a second. I can't talk to you right now. And I'm so blessed and so fortunate. My girlfriends would be like, okay, we're here when you're ready. We'll give you 24 hours. But then we all over you, sis. No, but God, that just makes my heart so happy. Taking time is really important. And it's really beneficial because if I skip over this moment and just gloss over the pain, it will be a wound that I will cover up with band-aids that potentially needed to be fixed with stitches. You ever had a wound that you just thought was like, oh, that's nothing. It's not deep. I'll just throw some Neosporin on it and put a band-aid on it. And then weeks later, it's still there. And you have this nasty, disgusting thing, or even worse, it closed, or at least you thought it was healed, and then months later you hit it and it like pops open again. I've never actually experienced this, but this is what I liken not taking time to heal looks like, or not taking time to give yourself the permission to process what you're feeling looks like. It's dangerous. It can lead to death. It could be septic, right? Who knows? I'm taking 3 weeks off this month, and from seeing clients, from really pretty much doing anything. I'm actually taking some intentional time because, like I said, this last little National Infertility Awareness Week took a lot out of me. I really wasn't expecting it. And it's also a very big time in the Randall household. Around the month of May, we transition from one side of the world back to the other. And that means a lot of preparation. That means a lot of moving and shaking and packing and unpacking and repositioning of my schedule and life. And I want to prepare for the beginning of the summer, right? Like, so this has to end and the summer has to begin. And even that is a form of disenfranchised grief, because if you're not in this lifestyle, you'll be like, oh, that's great. You get to come back home. But I recognized as I was kind of preparing for this episode that every year I start to feel like this anxious anxiety moment. And I thought it was because, a contract is ending. So we need to focus on a new contract and, like the transition of having to pack and unpack and all those things. But I actually believe that a part of this is when you come to a team, the people who are your teammates become essentially your family. I see them more than I see my own family in a 12-month period. And if I'm honest, this time of the year brings up grief for me because I am now having to essentially end a period of my life, a time in my life with this family that I don't know will ever happen again. I don't know if we're going to see these people next year and next contract. We don't know. And the temporary, just the fluidness of this lifestyle is that it can be one way one moment. And so I didn't realize that these teammates turned family that I have to then say bye to at the end of every season if we don't potentially sign back together again or sign with the same team is sad to me. And it brings up feelings of grief. And so I'm taking 3 weeks off. Okay. Essentially, all that to say, I'm taking 3 weeks off. I'm taking time for me to process, for me to get myself together, to not start anything new until I end or deal with the ending of something well first. And then I'll move on. Right. The infertility reminders alone have given me such like a heavy heart over the last couple of weeks. The talks alone with some of the women that I'm meeting online have like left me exhausted at the end of the night. And it's taken a lot out of me. Seeing people in those places and giving them hope and support and counsel in those moments been a lot. And so I'm giving myself some time. I am going to intentionally take a 2-day silence retreat. I practice silence every day for 10 minutes, and I'm going to tell you that is heavy. It's pretty hard. Silence is literally exchanging my person and my will for the presence of God. And intentional time to be present in what's now is important. To enjoy my loved ones when I get home, to be available for them in new circumstances and experiences that I didn't get to have over the last couple of months with them, and forge new opportunities for even our relationships to grow is my goal in this 3 weeks of time off. But it's really to process the past, to process this past couple of months, and to create ways to honor my heart consistently in the next. What did I do well in this season? What did I not do so well? And how can I move on and create systems that will allow me to do things even better in the next? The third thing on what to do that I have learned is that I need to accept and not reject the growth that takes place in grief. Grief is not always a negative. I have some things, some opportunities that I think have been offered to me in the way of growth that would not have been there had I not experienced grief. Maturity is birthed through the marrying of self-control and humility. And what I mean by it's literally their baby. And what I mean by that is I have learned how to be okay with things ending by controlling my want to throw a temper tantrum over the things that I can't have or I don't have or haven't gotten. To acknowledge the limits of my knowledge, that I literally don't know everything. Like, I've been humbled to realize I don't know everything. I know, shocking, right? Mia, you don't think you know everything. Ha! It's been a struggle. I'm glad you got this Mia and not the old Mia. I feel like I even have moments where like know it all. But yeah, acknowledge my limits. Then forcing me to become aware of some of the difficult parts of me that may be hard for others to experience who are in relationship with me. It's hard being in relationship with others. I wrote this down. It's hard being in relationships with others who don't believe who don't believe they need to grow and are unwilling to grow. Yeah. So me realizing that I don't know everything, even when I think I do, and learning how to keep my mouth shut because I want to defend myself and tell my story because it feels good, is pride. And that I don't have to do that. And if I did not go through the loss of a good friendship when it was great, right? And a journey through infertility that has had its ups and downs, and um, caused even some grief in my marriage, right? And experienced the loss, the death of a good friend, um, that I wouldn't know these things. I would not have experienced these things. I was listening to Megan Ashley talk about, she was on the, what's that podcast called? Dear Future Wifey podcast, or Dear Future Wife podcast. And the host talked about, the friendship between her and B. Simone ending and what that felt like to her. And she shared that sometimes you grow apart. Sometimes there's a growth that takes place. And, there's things that you could have done differently. But sometimes we get to a place in our journey with others where we just are on separate paths. And being aware that there's things about me and there's things about her that need to grow and transition and change, and that we may not be able to do that together, is maturity. She didn't say it in those words, but that's what I got from it. um, but I think that's a whole different podcast episode that I might have to write down, and we'll talk about before later. Because I have learned so many things from the ending of this friendship, y'all. I get that. It has caused me to want to think about the episode. Anyway, we can talk about that. Another thing is learn how to switch your perspective. This has been tremendous for my mental health, my emotional health, and my spiritual health. Endings lead to new beginnings. Losses can be transitioned into gains. Changes can be seen as opportunities. Lack does not mean that there will not be abundance in other areas. Failures are just lessons that are waiting for you to become aware of. I have learned how to be an expert in switching up perspective, because that alone has fed my hope meter and given me joy in moments of extreme sadness and grief. And of course, I'm going to tell you, the fifth thing that I think is really helpful is sisterhood, right? Not isolating, but embracing community fully, like really embracing your community. One of the things that I think genuine sisterhood does well is that we do not rush our sisters through anything. We literally just sit in it with them. Like, okay. I remember my sister coming home from the hospital after giving birth to my nephew. And she was just extremely sad because my nephew was born early, and he was the littlest, tiniest little thing. He was in the NICU. Y'all, my husband was so cute too. Anyway, that's a whole different story. But my sister had to go home because she couldn't stay in the hospital the same amount of time as my nephew. But I remember sitting at the house with her, and she's just crying in pain. And she's like, I'm in so much pain. I can't figure this out. I don't know what's happening. And I'm like, I don't know what to do, but I'll sit here with you. And she's like, okay. And then we wind up actually going to the emergency room. I think it was like a outpatient center. And I sat with her the entire time. Even though she was like, you can go. I sat with her the entire time in her pain, her screaming, and not once, not once did I say anything to her like, hey, Misha, relax. They're coming back. They're going to get you some pain medicine. I remember in the room, I was like, I'm so sad that you're going through this pain. Like, whatever she was feeling, I'm right there. And then I would leave the room and I'm like yelling at at the nurses and the doctors. I don't know who needs to do what, but y'all need to figure out something because my sister is in pain, right? But in front of her, I wasn't like that. I left the room. And then when I came back in the room, I was like, oh, yeah, we're in pain. And I didn't think about that until I was writing this, but just that alone, not rushing her through anything and not even rushing the people in front of her, right? Because that could be, showcasing to her that I want her to rush past this. And now, obviously, I don't want her in pain and I would like to get her out of pain. But that is the same pain that some people feel when they're in grief, is that it's unbearable and shocking at times, is that I can even feel this way. And we don't want them to rush past it off. We want to figure out what's causing that pain so that we can sit there and deal with it until we're ready to move on. And another part of sisterhood, not isolating, is that you have someone to bear that weight with you, to carry the heaviness with you. I think there's a level of accountability that comes with embracing sisterhood and grief that is not all about the feel goods. So let me transition really quick. Is that, yes, sisterhood should give a sense of relief and support and all of the lovey-dovey things. But truly, like, what has been beneficial for me in sisterhood and my times of grief is accountability. I really feel like this is a form of love because it makes sure that I'm not out here walling in my grief. And let's be honest, ladies, sometimes when we're grieving, we wall out. We be for the streets instead of for the time to sit and recover. I wrote this down. I don't know where I got it from, but it's a quote. You can Google it, but it says the only meaningful thing we can offer is love, not advice, not questions about our choices, not suggestions for the future, just love. And I found a group online that is comprised of women who have bonded through their loss of a loved one. So I'm assuming either a spouse or a child or just someone close to them, a parent. And in their extreme times of grief, they have a support group that they go to. And one of the things that they shared was that this support group, that we don't give advice, we don't question each other's choices, we don't make suggestions for the future, we just love on one another. But a part of that love is accountability. And accountability comes from knowing that my sisters are going through the same thing or something similar, right? And I care so much about them that even in my own grief, I don't want to influence them in a certain way. I don't want to showcase to them that it is okay to fill a void, right? And so that accountability towards one another to survive in their journeys evoked hope in one another. And they shared some experiences online, and one girl said in her early experience she remembers wanting to do all of the things just to try to make her feel better, drink, use drugs, have sex, do all these different things. And her sisters, they didn't give her advice, they weren't judging her, they weren't judging her choices or anything, they just were there. And they would not leave her. They would call and check on her, they would just be there. And I think we miscalculate accountability for telling someone what to do. But sometimes accountability is just being available. Yo, I'm watching you. I ain't gonna question your choices, but I'm watching you and I want you to know that I love you. And I pray that you know that if there's something that you are going through, that I can be here to love you through it. This group of women like legit are holding one another accountable. And at the end, like one of their mottos is that this group gives space, validation, understanding, and hope, making each member a better sister because of it. Maybe I just wrote that. But that's what I got from it. And that's what accountability looks like in sisterhood. And if you have encountered a sister who is grieving, I beckon you to proceed with this same type of love, that validation, that understanding, if you can, in the moment, or even in a willingness to understand, maybe is a better way to put it. Space and hope. Yeah. I've been asked before, so that's it for how I have learned how to deal with grief, what can work for you and your sisters. But I've also been asked, before, what should I say to someone who is grieving, to my sister who is grieving? What can I say? And honestly, the truth is, it depends. Everyone is different. Everyone grieves differently. The reasons are not the same. And I really feel like it depends. And it's unique to the person. But I can say that it's best to say something. Don't just ignore it. Don't just pretend like their grief isn't real or that something hasn't taken place to evoke some level of grief. And yeah, just don't ignore them. I would say keep them first and keep them as the main focus. Don't try to make yourself a part of this. I have experienced that before. um, Actually, I've experienced someone attempting to be supportive to me, and somehow, some way, I became the support for them. I'm like, who's grieving here? Don't do that. It actually promotes the person who's grieving to try to rush past what they're feeling and to become really passive, um, to help you, because it's easier to help someone else than to help myself. The third thing is be honest. I think honesty is the best policy. If you don't have anything to say I don't know what to say. I'm just gonna be here. I really don't understand what you're going through. Um, I want to try, if you let me, if that's possible. But be honest. I have no idea what this feels like for you. I know. Okay, here's one thing that you don't say. Don't say that everything happens for a reason. That might be my pet peeve. Okay, let's go there. I loathe that statement. One, because I don't believe everything happens for a reason, but it's not helpful. I mean, that's essentially why I say it. It's don't say it. It's not helpful. It doesn't help the person who's in it. 0 stars. Tomato, tomato, tomato. Okay. No one who has ever heard everything happens for a reason actually feels better from it. If they have, feel free to write me and tell me that has made you feel better. But I read this amazing book by Kate Bowler, Bowler. It's titled Everything Happens for a Reason and Other Lies That I've Believed, or that I've loved. Right. And it talks, and basically in the book, she explores how at one point in her life, she really was into the prosperity gospel, and how that essentially taught you that everything happens for a reason. If you're really good and you do all these good things and you pray to God for all of these, blessings and whatever, that essentially he will give you the desires of your heart. But it leaves very little room for the real reality of living in this world. that with death, disease, disruption, chaos, disorder, all of those things, and that it gives people a get out of jail free card, I guess, to say everything happens for a reason. It's going to be okay. Instead of forcing them to be honest and just sit in the uncomfortableness of what's taking place, right? Someone gets a cancer diagnosis, it let's be honest, it feels good for you to say, or it feels better to you to say, oh, everything happens for a reason. You're gonna God is doing this to, I don't know, write a better story or give you a greater testimony, or it's a test. No, please don't ever in your life say that to me or anyone else, okay? Infertility is not a test. Infertility is not a better testimony for me. I will exchange it quickly if that's the case. But it really is to make you feel more comfortable about what's taking place in someone else's life. Instead, just be real. That sucks. It sucks to get a cancer diagnosis. I'm with you, sis. And I'm mad for you. I'm mad with you. I'm sorry that this is happening. I don't believe it's happening for a reason. I don't believe this is your test. I don't believe God is writing a better testimony for you. I believe a testimony is possible, and there's no real reason for it other than living in a fallen world. So, okay, you can't go wrong there. Sorry, that was a tangent rabbit hole. I feel like you can't go wrong with any of these other things except for that thing. Like, if you're going to say something, just don't say that. Yeah. And you can't go wrong with embracing where they are, right? Just meeting them where they are. Don't don't try to rush them past anything that they're not ready to move past. Sit there with them. Brene Brown had an illustration one time about vulnerability and how vulnerability is not throwing a ladder in the hole for them to climb out, but climbing down into the hole with them and sitting there until they're ready to get out. And I really feel like you can't go wrong with any of that. And even if you do, like, even if any of those things that you do, saying something, keeping them first, not making yourself the focus, making them the focus, being honest, embracing where they are, even if you do, like, it goes off, it's just not received well, that's okay, right? You tried your best, and as long as you lead with love, that love will cover all of it. Grief is so unexpected and it has so many caveats to it. I think that there's no one way of doing it well, but if you do it with love, you can't go wrong. Just don't say everything happens for a reason. Yeah. So, I pray, though, over you, my sisters, that you're never alone in your grief. I pray that that is something that none of us should and will ever experience silently and alone, but that we will be filled with people around us who know how to support, offer support, who want to support, who are willing to support, who are willing to supply community, and that you will be one of those people for your sisters, for anyone who you encounter who's going through grief, and how important it is to our sisterhood, to us as women overall, is that we recognize that hard things are going to happen, that there are going to be some difficult emotions that go along with those hard things, but if we're there to support one another in it, that we can't go wrong. Loving each other through this is really hard. But grief, if we are willing to face it head on, can provide a deep sense of growth and maturity, self-control, humility, and love and compassion for one another that we would never have experienced in any other way. So, thank you for joining me. Hey guys, thank you for joining me on this episode of Grief. As a formerly trained counselor, I want you to know if you or someone you know are going through grief and need support, please don't hesitate to contact me via email. You can reach me at heysis@comesiswithme.com. and or visit newellonline.com. That's NUWELLONLINE.com, where a team of professional counselors are standing by to help you in any way that you may need. We're an online counseling platform that offers support, strategies, and resources in Christian counseling for those who are seeking care. Don't do it alone, sis. Let's make sure that you have the tools and the space that you need. I love you and pray that you know, even in the hardest of seasons, that you've got this, sis.